So, hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unpacking Possibility. I'm your host, Tracy Stein, as always. I'm so happy to be here with you. My guest today is Marty Stalker. Marty is an award winning director. He's also a veteran and an advocate for plant based medicines. In this episode, Marty really candidly shares his journey of struggling with post traumatic stress following his military service and his process of finding relief ultimately through plant-based medicines. Now, I want to give you a heads up that in this episode, we discuss a number of really important but weighty topics, including post-traumatic stress, suicidal thoughts and suicide, war trauma, heavy substance use, and more. The other thing I wanted to mention is that many of the remedies that Marty discusses are not yet legal in a number of places. And so please know that what Marty would say and what I would say is everybody's journey is individual. This is what worked for him. You need to decide what works for you. What I highly recommend, as always, is that if you're considering using any new remedy, whether it's conventional, complementary, or alternative, please do discuss these with your healthcare provider or healthcare team. My last thought before we get to the episode is just that if you're listening and you're debating whether to seek help for symptoms that feel overwhelming, please do. And I list 2 resources that are available to veterans and their families in the United States. So please do consult the show notes. And without further ado, let's get to the episode and Marty's story. Today's guest is, an incredible person with an incredible story, and his name is Marty Stalker. Now, if the name sounds familiar, perhaps it's because he's an award-winning filmmaker. It could also be because maybe you caught one of the 2 interviews that Marty did with me and my co-host Kathy on our other podcast, Curious Explorers, on a completely different topic. But, I want to tell you a little bit about Marty, and then Marty's going to tell his story. Marty Stalker, again, award-winning filmmaker, a former secondary school teacher, and a section commander in the Royal Marine Commandos, including leading a team of elite soldiers in 2 operational theaters of war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Marty has an incredible journey to talk about since then as well, and we're going to talk about that and much more. So, Marty, without further ado, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
No problem at all. It's plant medicine is I'm very new to it, but sort of 5-6 years, and I if someone offers me an opportunity to tell my unique story, then I'm in 100%.
I love that, you kind of almost as an aside shared that on the other episode. Again, completely different topic, but you're not the first person to tell me that they've had a transformative experience with plant medicine. You're not the first veteran to talk about how that was life-changing. And in fact, I'm thinking of somebody else who told me it was literally life-saving for him. Before we dive into it, I just want to give people who are new to either the health issues that veterans face, especially returning from a tour of duty, but also about psychedelics like psilocybin. So I'm just going to go over a few of those things and then let's talk about that and how that may or may not fit in with your experience. For people who and you and I haven't used the term PTSD. I don't know if that describes your experience, but post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, in the general population, we're talking about 6% or 6 people out of 100 over the course of a lifetime for a variety of reasons. In veterans, generally, we're talking about lifetime risk, not that much higher, but about 7% higher for women than men. Again, for understandable reasons that we probably won't get into today. But for people who have been in specific conflicts, like the Persian Gulf War, 21% lifetime risk. Now it's quite a bit higher. Or the Iraq War, 29%. So you're talking about nearly 30 people out of 100. It's a lot of people. Deployment increases the risk threefold. And to be honest, as a psychologist, I think that's an underestimation because you're more likely to get, in the United States anyway, a diagnosis of PTSD if you are seeking services at a VA facility than you are if you go to a community health center or especially a private doctor's office. Part of that might be because, at VA hospitals here, they specifically assess for post traumatic stress. Something I learned in prepping for our conversation today was that, one of the larger samples of veterans again here by the VA, about half of them had used psychedelics. And a common reason, maybe the most common reason, is for healing or to treat symptoms. And the second most common, and that's almost 70% of people, the second most common reason is spiritual exploration. Almost half of the people who use psychedelics use it for that reason. So, without further ado, I want to hear more about your specific experience and your journey.
Yeah, so I actually PTSD was something that not necessarily we were warned about. We, as young soldiers, we were doing a job which we were, in my eyes, personal reasons, I was born to do. I had generations of warriors before me, and the Stalker family, I mean, goes back hundreds of years. We were always soldiers, and I'll come back to that later on with my experience with ayahuasca. And but really, I left the military after my Afghanistan tour uh, around about 2007. And it wasn't until a few years after, when I became a civilian and tried to sort of integrate back into society, where my life started to disintegrate, in a sense of I began to isolate myself. I things started to trigger me a lot more than they would usually. Hearing conversations, the big thing of what I learned about fighting in wars is life is precious, and it can be snapped away from you within a second. You know, whether that be a bullet, an IED, a rocket, etc. So overhearing conversations on public transport where I would get angry because they just didn't get it. Or the other civilians, and I don't like to call them civilians because we were all the same. We were all one in a sense. But coming back, I had no knowledge spirituality wise. I had no knowledge of all this until later down the line. But I realized through conventional therapy, and that's weird saying that because plant medicine is always put into the unconventional category when plant medicines have been around for thousands of years. It's been growing in the earth since the creation of man. So, especially with mushrooms and psilocybin, and I actually, through a therapist, through EMDR, got to the root cause of my deterioration as a human being, and that was guilt. And it took me about 6 months through a conventional therapist through EMDR therapy where I got to the root cause. So it was guilt. So what happened? There was many stories like this in my 9 years of being a Royal Marine, but just one particular occasion where an Afghan policeman was shot through the head, and he was right next to me and fell to the ground. And big attack happened, opened up, the enemy opened up, etc. So it all kicked off, and we were all pinned down. And then I eventually got to the Afghan policeman because I was a section commander as well. So I was a certain rank in the team of Afghans and the Royal Marines, and they were looking at me to, what are we doing next? Should we help this Afghan colleague who was bleeding out on the ground? And of course we have to. These are our colleagues. Even though there was a lot of differences in culture and intentions and beliefs and stuff, but I eventually got to the body of the policeman, dragged him into a more safer area, administered first aid, put a bandage around his head, eventually got him off the hill and put him in the back of a transport, and he was taken away via helicopter to a nearby base, etc. I'm just giving you the sort of broad strokes of the
Yeah,
incident.
absolutely.
So that was just one incident. I was covered in his blood and brain matter and stuff. It was pretty horrendous sort of to think about now, but like that was just one incident out of many that happened. But it was this particular incident which my mind cycle, my human being couldn't get through, and it manifested into guilt. So I believed that I wasn't quick enough to save him. So although, it was a battle going on, there was chaos everywhere, I felt I didn't know this until it was extracted out by the therapist through 6 months of sessions that it was guilt that I was sort of manifesting inside my being, and I believed I was unprofessional because I wasn't quick enough to save the man or to at least get first aid to him quicker. Looking back now, I mean, the therapist, she made me go through the whole scenario multiple times. And in my head, I felt like I was 12 minutes from him getting shot by the sniper to me giving him first aid was 12 minutes, 12, 15 minutes in my head. We did a role play. We did the same. She made me go through the whole event six or seven times, and she took the average timing, and the average timing was 1 minute 12 seconds. So then I started to teach myself or reteach myself that yes, I was quick enough, I was professional, I did my best, and that's all I could do. And that's when my mind sort of clicked back into operation again. It was crazy. So it was guilt that I was manifesting and harvesting inside my being, and I would never have got that if it wasn't for the skilled therapist in that room to extract that from me. And the reason why that was interesting is because I ended up, because of my experiences with EMDR therapy, I was like, right, as a filmmaker, storyteller, I was like, I need to make some sort of film about these treatments that are there for veterans to highlight the good practices and the good medicines and the good therapy that's out there. Unbeknown to me, I was in the gym, and my friend who was also in the Royal Marines came over to me and he said, "You need to see my dad. He's been on this spiritual awakening journey. He's back from his latest ayahuasca ceremony. You need to speak to him now." And this is an island, Northern Ireland, and I went round to the house, met his dad, um, who we are now very, very close friends. He taught me through his journey with plant medicines, and that interaction with my friend in the gym that sparked a sequence of events which were not not a coincidence. It was, some. I believe it's all laid out for us anyway. We're just being guided by our higher selves. And from speaking to his dad, I started to think about, right, this is an interesting angle, because at the time in the industry, there was a lot of content about PTSD, a lot of the samey kind of content. And I thought, wow, no one's done much about alternative medicines and treatments. So let me speak to this man and let him guide me through this alternative way of treating PTSD at the time. So look, I wasn't a drug user. I wasn't, I mean, I drank a lot of alcohol. That was part of the culture of being in the military. Looking back now, we were functioning alcoholics. We would drink hard and train really hard. That was our culture. And I'm sure it's the same in I can't say for the American military, but the British military, it's culturally, you know, as a culture, that is what we was normal for us. The alcohol abuse in the military was what we did, and we didn't think twice at the time. So I said, right, out of all the treatments that he and the medicines that he talked about, there was one particular medicine called Cambo, which is the cleansing ritual in the Amazon, where they take the substance from the frog in the Amazon,
Okay.
the toad, the monkey frog, sorry. And when the monkey frog is distressed, it secretes like a poisonous substance on its skin. And I was totally, totally shocked by this. And he said, it's not, this is not a psychedelic. This is still legal in the Western world and other countries. And it's not a psychedelic. And I thought, okay, then. So as a filmmaker, I need to remain as objective as possible, but I do need to try some of these treatments if I'm going to make a film about this.
Right.
Cool.
I want to make sure everybody, like, I kind of want to set the stage for people either who have not been in the military or are unfamiliar not only with your experience, but with the journey towards finding some relief. So here you're a young man. you're in the military and you feel a passion for it. You feel it is part of your life path. It is in your family. You said, I come from a long line of warriors. So it's not that, I mean, you were there because you wanted to be and you felt called to do this. But just the one traumatic event you described would be ruinous for so many people. It would be destructive to the psyche because I actually don't think we are wired to be able to tolerate that, especially not day in and day out. And I imagine, if I get your experience wrong, please tell me, but you come home and you're relieved to be home, but like you said, there are so many things that trigger a strong emotional response, whether it's anger or anxiety or guilt. I imagine that, I don't know if your dreams were affected. Many people's are. A lot of people cannot sleep or they feel constantly on edge and hypervigilant. In addition to some of the things that you've described. And again, it's understandable. I don't know if that kind of describes part of your experience.
Yeah, yeah. It's if we felt like who are we to come back from war zones and complain about having PTSD? We signed up. We knew exactly what we were going into. We we were young men. We answered the call. For some, it was ancestral, like myself. It's an ancestral chain of warriors. It's that is what I when I was started to do more of the psychedelic, more of the ayahuasca treatments than ceremonies. Then that's where it all came up. But really, yeah, who are we to moan and to seek help when we knew exactly what we were getting ourselves into? It was like sort of we felt like hypocrites for asking for help afterwards because we knew we were going to go to war. Especially, I mean, I got my Green Beret 2 months before 9/11. I got qualified. I passed commando training, and 9/11 happened. And I'd say for a lot of American, Canadian, Brits, other coalition troops at that time, we were very, very busy, and really it was exactly what I signed up for. It's exactly what I wanted, and we just felt like a lot of us felt like we had no, you know, why should we reach for help when we knew exactly what we were getting into? That's the psyche behind it all. That's the mindset.
And I just wanna and please no, I'm not in any way trying to invalidate your experiences. I'm just saying from the outside,
Yeah, yeah,
my stance is one of compassion because even if you knew intellectually what that would involve, I mean, the experience again, I think would be overwhelming for the strongest people. And especially, you know, people are so young. Not that when you're older, any of that would be easier. But the other thing I wanna just note before we move on is that you're talking about alcohol abuse, heavy alcohol use, hard training. I from my perspective, I take the stance that the things we do to try and self-regulate or self-soothe or achieve some sort of balance, they're tools, right? We use the medicine that is available to us. Not all medicine is equally effective. And I think aside from the culture of hard drinking and what that's associated with, I just think people do the best they can to try to remain sane. It sounds like that's kind of part of what drives that, I imagine.
yeah. A lot of. I mean, I was offered a lot of work outside the military with private security, maritime security, bodyguard work. I mean, it, war is very much a drug in a sense of, a good friend of mine said the line, I think it's being so close to dying, which makes you feel more alive. And it's like a drug. It becomes a drug. It's euphoric. It's I can't really explain it to people apart from you can't get enough of it. And war is very much 90% hanging around for things to happen, 10% action. You think about a 6 to 12 month tour. you're not fighting every day. It's not like the Second World War, or to be fair, the Second World War, they weren't fighting every day. But what I'm saying is, war sounds like it's hell every day, but actually it's a lot of waiting around for things to happen. And when that 10% of action happens, it's absolutely euphoric. And when lads leave the military, they go into drugs, alcohol. They find the rush by going on their own adventures, whether that be through private security, mercenary work. They're always in pursuit of that fix. And luckily for me, I had a second passion, which was my filmmaking, and I meshed the two together. So one of my first jobs after leaving the Marines was to go to Sudan in Africa to make a film there, and then that was dangerous, and I meshed the adventure, the excitement with my filmmaking, and then I headed off to Egypt during the Arab Spring, where I was sort of parachuted in to document the Tahrir Square and the revolution there. And again, I was getting my fix through adventure, storytelling, you know, a lot of close calls. That was feeding me in a sense. And as you get older and you have more lived in experience and you have children and dependents, and you start that starts to sort of slowly fade away, and you start getting left more selfless and more and less selfish, in a sense of, you know, I need to be more present with my children. I need to be more, a better parent. So it's some men, especially friends of mine, have never are continuing to chase that euphoric feeling of being close to dying. And that's how I'd explain it. Is, I mean, drugs don't come close. There's no comparison really. It's hard to explain really if you haven't been there. And I hope many people don't go to war, because it is hell on earth, as you can imagine. So it's, yeah. So if lads can't get that fix, then they turn to more close by fixes like drugs, and they abuse alcohol, and they become hermits, or they just become absolutely unhinged, and relationships break down, and it's yeah. Many of us do get out of the cycle, but there's a lot of good men and women there who are still in that cycle. And I know for a fact that plant medicine is an incredible tool to help them come out of that sort of never-ending cycle.
We have to take a brief break, but when we return in a few moments, you'll hear more from my interview with Marty Stalker and more about his journey from veteran struggling with post traumatic stress disorder to becoming an award winning filmmaker and an advocate for plant medicine. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment. So you now going back to your friend from the gym, his
Yep.
father, your friend from the gym is a veteran as well, or his father is a
Yeah.
veteran as well? Okay.
Both veterans. Yeah.
Okay. And is that how the father discovered plant medicine? Or
His father found it through YouTube.
oh wow.
It was an interview with Sting, I believe, and Sting was talking about his personal experiences with psilocybin and ayahuasca and stuff. So he was close to killing himself. He was um, very, very close, and turned to YouTube one morning, and there was an interview came up on his feed, and it was an interview with Sting and his personal experiences with plant medicines. And I was like, right, you know what? Before I give up on this life, I'm gonna give this a go. I'm gonna put my toe in the water. So he went off and did his first ayahuasca ceremony, and basically stopped him from killing himself there and then.
In some of the kind of brief research that I did looking into, because I'm a psychologist, but I'm not an expert on psychedelics. And I actually know some people who are, but I wanted to be better informed before we met today. And again, I'm so struck by how many people who are veterans seek out the use of plant medicines and how transformative it is for them. I mean, that was the other thing. And I want to hear more about your specific experience. But I mean, people report everything, again, I'm speaking really to people who are completely new to this, who are listening, but everything from incredible visual imagery, synesthesia, which is like for people who are listening, like multiple senses combined where they normally wouldn't be. So you might smell or taste the color purple or, green or whatever. Feelings of bliss and connectedness and a dissolution of the ego or the self. So feeling this connectedness to something greater than you, but like really to everything. I mean, it's not for somebody to just go do usually without any sort of education or guidance. And I want to hear more about that. But people generally report feeling that it was worthwhile and transformative. And that's kind of, it sounds like what you are saying.
I think the reason why veterans a lot of veterans do go down the road to plant medicine is because they are chasing that next fix. They are chasing that adventure, and warriors are designed to. A lot of us anyway. We don't go down very lightly, and we will continue to fight until our last breath, in a sense. And you find that with the warrior's mindset that we we don't like the victim mindset. We don't, we will fight and we will try as anything and everything before we give up. And a lot of veterans are finding, the challenges of plant medicine is because it's so unknown. You're going in like with a war zone. You research your enemy. You know exactly who you're up against. You know their history. You know their patterns of behavior. But with plant medicine, you're going in absolutely blind, and you have zero. I mean, you can read a few articles and watch a few documentaries, but really, you're going into the unknown, and that's what fascinates a lot of veterans is again, it's that adventure, chasing that fix, chasing that excitement. And yeah, I mean, it's yeah. So going back to my story then, so I chose the Cambo cleansing because I knew it wasn't a psychedelic. So to keep myself sort of, you know, to dip my toe in the water, I chose Cambo because I knew it was legal and it wasn't psychedelic, and I wouldn't be away tripping, or I would be very much present in the room. And I would probably say, I don't want to sort of, you know, let me say, Cambo for me is probably the most important medicine out of all the plant medicines. And this is, and I will explain this a little bit later, but so Cambo in essence, Kambo. People can look it up online. It's a natural cleansing ritual done in the Amazon, and it's done with on little kids to fully grown men and women. It's they've been doing it for thousands of years, and basically it absolutely changed my life. I was a human being with lower back problems because in the military, in the Marines especially, we carried heavy loads on our back. We jumped out of airplanes and helicopters, and we had a lot of stress and a lot of injuries on the body, and I had a lot of gut issues as well. I had a lot of underlying issues, health problems, and I did my first Cambo cleanse, and absolutely changed my life. My lower back pain went literally straight after the cleansing ritual. My gut issues restored, and my bucket was. I don't want to sort of put the audience off here, but I'm going to anyway. So what happens is, um, the practitioner will burn holes, and it couldn't be anywhere in the body, but for this occasion, it was on my arm. So he burned a few holes with a stick, and he broke the top layer of the skin, broke the skin off, and then he applied the medicine onto the holes, and instantly you feel this heat rise through the body, and you can feel something internal going on. And what it does, it collects anything that's that's synthetic, or anything from drugs to, you think about like cocaine is mixed with all sorts of stuff like diesel and all sorts of, I don't even want to think about it. It's mixed with a lot of horrible stuff, and it basically collects all the toxins in the body that's not natural, puts them into the gut area, and basically purge it into a bucket, or it comes out the other end as well. But for me anyway, for my first cleansing session, my bucket, I purged into the bucket. And many people don't like to do this cleansing ritual because you are very vulnerable in the sense that you are vomiting in front of a stranger, you know.
Oh, wow.
but for me, it was my friend's father, so I knew him anyway. But a lot of people can't get past that resistance in the sense that, wow, you're going to see me vomit. You know, well, that's part of the whole ritual. Is you have to purge this out of your form, and a lot of vaccines that I took in the military, which weren't good for me. All this stuff that I knew I can't naturally get out, the through pharmaceuticals, all the pharmaceutical inside, etc. It was, and also purging energy as well. It's very energetic as well. What we do, and like I said before, my lower back pain slowly, gradually dissipated, and I was able to go out jogging again. I was able to do mountain climbing, which I'd missed because of my back pain and my health problems. So, I mean, I think I've done about 24 Cambo cleanses over the last 6 years.
Oh my goodness. I so just so every just my disclaimer that I have to do,
Yeah, yeah, go
you know,
for it.
we're not recommending that people just go out and do this. This was your journey and your process. And this is one type of plant medicine ritual that was incredibly healing for you and has a history with indigenous peoples of using it being very healing. But that is not the only plant medicine that you wound up using either. This really set you on a path.
I, th- I think I think what the Cambo did for me was because I was obviously I didn't want to do any psychedelics at this stage. I wasn't a drug user. I was a a functioning, I wouldn't say a functioning alcoholic, but I drank a lot of alcohol. For me, that's probably the most dangerous spirits of all at the moment. But what I would say to you is, it, by cleaning myself out physically and energetically, I was like a clean vessel going into the plant medicine. But like I said before, I'll do one camp. I mean, I'm going to book in for next week for a Cambo cleanse. I'll do because you're naturally picking up toxins in the air. You're naturally eating the wrong foods. I think I've got parasites at the moment. Maybe I'm paranoid. However,
You
you know,
travel a lot for
yeah,
people who are wondering why that could be.
I travel a lot. Yeah, so the Cambo for me at the start of my journey, it cleaned me out physically and energetically. So over time, like in my personal life, things went south, deteriorated rapidly, and I walked into same man's house, Tom, and my friend's father, and he looked at me and he says, "I really think you should you're looking very down." I was extremely depressed. I was very open about that at the time, and he says, "What are your thoughts about doing a psilocybin ceremony?" And I was like, no idea what to expect. I'd heard some stories and I'd read a few articles and seen a few short documentaries online, and I just knew it was time to do it. I think I wasn't doing it because I was chasing a rush. I just felt like I'll try anything at this stage because things have gone really, really bad. And
And I'm sorry, you're
yeah,
how old at this point?
oh, this was 40 years old. Yeah.
So you're out of the military now for how many years?
Oh yeah. So let me do the math now. About 15 years.
And if you don't mind, you were struggling on and off for
Yeah.
those 15 years
Yeah. Yeah.
and just trying to kind of power through it yourself because it's that
Yeah.
military man. I don't want to ask for help. I've got this.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's it's generational as well because my grandfather's generation was even more rigid in the lack of, you know, uh, they would never ask for help. That generation, especially the World War II generation, they would go to the pub or they would go to the Legion and they would talk there, which is absolutely fine. But they it was seen as a weakness, and that's crazy to say this now. And I believe there's a lot of the military now is a lot more educated and a lot more open with this sort of industry. But um, for me, it was it was never in my mind to seek for help. It was never an option. It was never an option to seek for help. And visually, I had the first day in the therapist room. Sorry, it was weird because I was in the chair and this didn't happen, but it happened in my mind. I was lying in the chair and looked out the window and I saw 4 or 5 of my men who were in my section and they were looking at me through the window and they were extremely disappointed at me. This
These
this
are
did, this was imagery that I created in my mind.
Okay.
So
These are men who were deceased or who are still alive?
no, men who were still alive, who
Okay.
I'd been in Iraq with, and yeah, it was just I just felt like they were staring at me and being disappointed that I had actually eventually sought help. That was all in my mind.
I just want to just say again for people who are listening, you're mentioning doing EMDR, which is a type of therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing is the full term. And it is designed to help people work through traumatic memories, intrusive thoughts. It's been used for a long time. And here you are, you knew to seek this out specifically, which is to your credit, because I think a lot of people don't know where to start.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just a yeah. I think I just searched for it on Google and it came up and it was nearby, and I reached out and yeah, it was yeah. Again, it was. I mean, I know we're talking predominantly about plant medicines in this show, but yeah, I mean, the EMDR saved me just as much as the plant medicine saved me down the road, but for different reasons. The
Yeah,
EMDR was sorting out my issues with trauma. Absolutely. So going back to, I don't want to sort of confuse the audience here with the timeline. So going back to the mushroom ceremony
yeah,
proposal, and I just felt like it was time to do it. I knew it was going to be. I knew it was psychedelic. I knew it was a drug. I knew it was illegal. And at this stage in my life, I just knew it was time to do it. I was, in a sense, desperate for, just desperate for something to help me push me through this sort of rut in my life. And it was a Sunday morning, and I took 5 grams of mushrooms, and I think it was Golden Teacher, and I was gone for about 8 to 9 hours, I believe. And Tom, the father, my friend, sat with me. Well, he didn't sit with me, but he sat next door. He was sort of sitting in the ceremony, making sure that I didn't hurt myself. And the funny thing was, really for me, I was lying there. I'd taken the dried mushrooms with orange juice. The orange juice apparently activates it a lot quicker, etc. So I took the orange juice with the mushrooms in, and I lay on my raw mat with my pillow and blankets. And it was funny because I really understood that music is the orchestra of the trip. The music is so vital in a ceremony, in a sense that it's the music that guides you through your psychedelic experience. And 15 minutes had gone in. Tom popped his head in the room and asked me, "Are you feeling anything? How are you feeling?" And I was like, "No, I feel absolutely fine. It doesn't seem to be taking effect yet." I said, "Okay." And then the music started to skip like an LP, tick, tick, tick,
yeah.
tick, 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 like that. And I was like, "Tom, Tom." And I was like, "What?" He's like, why is the record skipping, the LP skipping?" And he just smiled at me and he laughed. And then and then it was I was gone. That was
Wow.
the yeah, that was the start of an incredible journey through at this stage through the psilocybin. And all I can say to you now is thank God that I did it in that environment. I know people who take them before concerts and take them, in Amsterdam and walk the streets and bars and clubs, and I really realized that this is medicine and it needs to be respected, and you need to be doing it in a ceremonial space in a very safe environment. And then the music basically took me from start to finish. The Tom's music playlist was perfect in a sense that we did the dark stuff first, so the music turned dark, and I did the heavy stuff very very at the front, and then the music started to sort of shift me through the experience, and things I was seeing things that about my own parents that I didn't know about. It showed me things about them as when they were children. It showed me a lot of things in a sense that it highlighted we call them pillars of strength. So as you sort of progress through life, you have like yourself. You have friends, and there's certain friends and family who are always there for you. Their love for you is unconditional, and they will do anything and everything for you if asked. And I call them the pillars of strength. And what the medicine showed me were who my pillars of strength were in my life. And they sort of grounded what I already knew anyway. But it was beautiful in the sense that it showed me who they were. And I was very grateful for that. And then it showed me things that hadn't happened yet. It showed me a few events in the future. It showed me in the mountains of Afghanistan again as a filmmaker with the Mujahideen, things that hadn't happened yet. So that was crazy as well to think about how it was showing me stuff that was about a year from happening anyway in reality. And halfway through the ceremony, I knew I could see myself doing this, but I ripped my belt off my jeans or whatever I was wearing, and I threw the belt out the room. It was quite violent actually. I was a bit shocked at how violent I was. And Tom, at the end of I was going to jump to the end here. The reason for that was Tom was. I apologize. Sometimes I'm very sorry. I remember doing this, but I'm sorry for throwing the belt out the room. It was very violent and aggressive. And he sort of smiled and he said, Do you understand why you did that?" And I was like, "No, I'm really confused." And he said, "What is the belt made of?" And it was leather. And he said, "You were getting leather off your body. You were getting anything that was like anything leather. I had to get off me."
Now I'm curious, what do you make of that?
Well, after I threw the belt out, I was in my process. After I threw the belt out, I what it showed me to this day, I've never eaten meat again. I've been a vegetarian for 4 years now, and I was a carnivore. I was up there with the best. I ate a lot of meat, and what it showed me about animals, livestock, agriculture, and like I said, I've never eaten meat since that day, since that ceremony, and it was showing me. And what I mean by it was showing me, this higher intelligence was showing me that an animal knows when it's about to die. It absolutely knows when it's in the cattle truck, when it's in the market, when it's in the butchers, when it's in the back of the van, whatever, in the field. It just knows when it's time's up. And when the animal is killed and fed to a human, the human is eating that energy. So the dead animal's energy is what you're consuming. And it's all about, we have the spirit inside our human vessel. And if you are eating it energy, if you're eating meat with that energy, all it's doing is suppressing the spirit inside. And it goes with alcohol as well, which I truly believe is demonic in nature. And the alcohol again is also a contributing factor to suppressing the spirit. And it's about breaking free from all this. And it was beautiful. It confirmed a lot of things about, like, we are spirits having a human experience. It consolidated a lot of themes that I already believed in anyway. But really, the animal, the killing of animals was really shocking to me. It showed me a lot of animals being butchered, and it was a lot of shock and awe within the ceremony, the ceremonial space. And like I said before, I've never eaten meat since. It shocked me to my core. And again, this higher intelligence was taking me again through my process, and it was just it was nice because the music shifted and it started to get more beautiful and spiritual, and then I started to see colors that I hadn't seen before, especially all the purple colors. And I looked outside Tom's window in his conservatory, and he's got beautiful, like, bushes in the back of his garden, and it was all I could say was it was all on fire with beauty. It was just radiating fire, beautiful green, purples. It was just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And yeah, I mean, I've sort of broad strokes over that experience, but really, it was just this feeling of love, this feeling of collective consciousness. So we are all one. We are all intertwined, whether we like it or not. The death of the ego was huge for me. It literally is the soul destruction of the ego. The ego was ripped out. And one thing that psilocybin does is it rips out your flaws and dangles them in front of your face, and it makes you look at your flaws and say, "This is what you're doing wrong. Please rectify." And it's hard because the ego is like, no, 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 I am perfect. Your ego is always trying to tell you that you're perfect and you're great and you're doing well. But then what the psilocybin, what it's great at is it rips out your flaws straight out of your vessel and it hangs them in front of your face. And you have to go, shit. I okay, all right, I do need to be a better father. Right, I'm doing this wrong in my personal life. I need to stop doing that. And it's hard because with the destruction of the ego, you are capable of saying, actually, you know what, you know, there's a lot of work to do. There is a lot of work to do from a personal point of view, and that some people can't handle that.
There's so much there in what you said, and I fear I will not be able to do justice to it because it is these things are, so impactful and Kathy and I talk about this on the other podcast with just paranormal experiences, and this is transpersonal, what you're talking about. It's like a higher level because
Yeah.
you're trying to describe something like a consciousness raising, and even the non-vegetarians listening will probably be like, well, wait a minute, but because they're not there yet. I mean, I've been vegetarian for the most part since 1993. So
Wow.
I get it. Not without sometimes when, for a variety of reasons, I had some animal protein, but for me, that's a better path. But it is a spiritual path, but it's one that a lot of people put the ego into.
Yeah.
And all of this is a journey, right?
Yeah. So I'd be sorry to put in there, but I
No, go
mean,
ahead.
if I have to feed my family, if we are in a survival scenario where I have to hunt, and if I have to catch my game or catch the meat, feed my family, keep my family alive, 100% I would do that. I will be respectful. I will give it a blessing. Right now, if we were in a survival situation, so I mean, I'm just back from South Africa, and I haven't been back since for 5 years. So pre sort of spiritual awakening, I was a heavy drinker. I ate lots of meat. I was in South Africa 5-6 years ago. Did the same. We drank a lot. We ate a lot of meat. And I came back recently last week, met all the guys again, and they're like, they can't get their head around it. They're like, what? You don't drink anymore? You don't eat meat anymore? It's nothing to do with me personally. It's I am on my unique path. This is alcohol does not serve me. Eating meat does not serve me. This is my unique response to things. This is my journey and mine only. You're on your own, mate. You crack on and and you try and navigate life the way you want to do it. But it's been interesting how a certain generation of especially men, especially my age, are really they just can't get their head around it. And it's really interesting that a lot of friends of mine in England, we had a reunion a few months ago, and the amount of times they came over to me and he said, I wish I wish I could do it. I wish I could come off the alcohol. I don't, and also the one thing they would say is, I don't think I can do it. And I'm trying to explain to them, well, you're already failing in a sense of you're already saying those words. How you project. You're already. I don't think I can do it. You're already being negative from the get go. You know, I am proof that the lads have seen me heavy drinker, and now I've turned my life around, and I'm very, very happy. The amount of times the lads came to me and said, "I don't think I can do this or do that." You've inspired me, yes, Marty, but I don't think I can do it. And I'm like, well, you're not even trying if you're saying that. Give it 2 weeks, and then I'm not there to preach. I'm not there in my behind my pulpit saying this is what you should do. I'm not commanding anything. All I'm being is the example to my friends that this is what's made me happy. If I would have continued down the path I was going, I don't think I'd be here right now. Leaving behind 3 children.
This is going to sound like a bit of an odd tangent, but I hope it will make sense. Because as you're talking about, meat and alcohol and things like that, and we talked it before about, I said I think of everything really is a potential tool with a purpose, and sometimes over time, we realize that this tool no longer serves us, or I have different tools or better tools for me. There's a woman, Anna Marie Colvin, who had a natural gourmet cookery and Institute for Food and Healing. I might be getting the title wrong. She passed away several years ago, but she said some pretty radical stuff over the years about food and the effects of food on the body and why we crave certain things. And she still has her books and cookbooks out. People can check them out if they want. But, I met her years ago and she was talking about, like meat is a very grounding food. And she would say, like, if you're feeling too expansive, too spacey, on a crying jag, something very dense or very salty, like meat, grains, a little bit, fish a little bit, but meat is the most dense, will kind of almost pull you back together. And it's kind of an odd way of thinking about food. But, if you think about it, certain spiritual groups don't eat meat and eat a lot of foods that are more expansive so that you are not so, I hate to say, like, earthbound or stuck in this body, but it's like the idea is that you are more spiritually kind of open.
Yeah,
And I think most of us just need to find a way to be balanced. But it's interesting because alcohol is so dissociative, right? But it does things for us or we wouldn't ever take it.
yeah,
We wouldn't consume it. And meat is very contractive.
yeah,
And if you are somebody who is trying to manage thoughts that can be overwhelming, I can understand why you would ping pong between a dissociative substance and a very contractive substance. So you're not completely taken away by your thoughts. Again, it's a very kind of out there take or non traditional take on the effect of food. But when somebody says, I can't do it or I'm not ready, I get on multiple levels why somebody may not feel in a place of readiness.
yeah,
And I also get why somebody would get to a point where they can no longer continue in the way that they were. And again, what you're describing with plant medicine and psilocybin specifically is that I'm just going to rephrase it a little bit in my own language, but like a feeling of oneness or connectedness when you can tap into the impact of what we do or what an industry does on, say, animals is a different level of consciousness.
yeah,
Another tangent from there, you're going to probably driving you crazy. Apologies in advance. But, just the fact that, during your psilocybin experience, you're also not, your consciousness is not limited to your brain and body. You are correctly discerning things that have yet to come to pass. And I think that changes us. I don't think you can do that and come back and go about life the same way you did,
no,
right? We're
yeah,
we're we're moving up to a different level at that point.
absolutely. It's the integration is probably the most important aspect of any of the plant medicine ceremonies. Is you're having an incredible spiritual awakening, and then you are sucked back into the body and the integration. Some people can't handle integration. Some people just think they're going absolutely crazy. It's very sad. There's a lot of this is why the medicine doesn't give you all the information there and then. For me, the medicine drip feeds you the information, drip feeds you the spiritual awakening over time. Otherwise, if you were to give someone the whole spiritual awakening, the whole meaning of life in one sitting, you would just fry your brain. People would just wouldn't be able to understand it and to integrate it purely because you sort of look back at the moment you are born. The moment you are born, you're fighting the spiritual battle. You are born the purest of anything. You are 100% pure, and over time, with your environments, with your relationships, with the people in your life, your family and friends, society. I mean, man-made society is purely there to make you fail. It's again, it's all about suppressing the spirit, and it's fighting through that suppression. And looking back now, it's like, wow. I mean, it, I, I used to use alcohol as a way to. I felt like it was it was medicine as well. I used to call it medicine. It's crazy. It's just like, this is not medicine. It's the opposite to medicine. It makes me feel awful about myself, and it alters my moral compass and etc. I'm not saying that that's as an excuse, but the way it affected me was not good, was not healthy for me. And really, you've got to know and understand what is suppressing you, and to put things in place into your life. If that means going for more walks in nature, if it means going wild camping, if it means coming off alcohol, if it means not eating meat, whatever it is with you from a unique point of view, you try and do that, because I can guarantee you now, if you try one of those things, you're going to feel a big difference. You're going to feel this. The way I describe it is carrying like a heavy rug, heavy carpet over your shoulders, and over time, as you start sort of having these spiritual awakenings, and as you said, as you as you level up in yourself, this weight just slowly starts to shift and to remove itself. And for me, the medicines come in many forms. Well, we'll go into ayahuasca soon, but like for me with cannabis, how I would explain things to people is, for me, the medicine has a particular function. So we have DMT, we have cannabis, we have Cambo, we have ayahuasca, we have psilocybin. They all, for me, again, what I'm saying to you right now is just unique to me. I'm not saying this is, there is no one mold fits all. This is just my unique subjective experience. And for me, the cannabis, that function is to teach me about the pure meaning of life. It's teaching me the meaning of life, the true meaning of life. And that for me is cannabis. And I've started to sort of take notes now and to jot that, because it's a massive sensory overload. It's the stuff there where it's showing me and telling me stuff where I'm like, I need to remember this, I need to remember this, I need to remember this. It's so important. The psilocybin for me really reinforced my sense of purpose. It taught me a few things that the higher intelligence who guided me through my process told me that my true sense of purpose in this life, in this human vessel, at this moment in time, is to continue to tell stories. You are a storyteller. You need to continue to take and to make your authentic stories. And the second bit of advice or thought that came through was, don't chase an audience. The audience will find you. As storytellers, you're always worried about, oh, will the audience like this? Or you sort of become detached in the sense of what's really important in what you do. And for me, I am doing what I was taught, which is to continue to tell my stories and not worry about audience numbers or whether people will like my films or not. The audience will find me. Stuff that I say, even stuff that I say right now on this podcast, will resonate with people. And I hope it does. And I hope they start to deprogram themselves with a sense of what you've been taught in school as a kid, in universities. You realize really what is it's not talked about enough, which is the plant medicine movement. And it's so important. It grows out of the earth. It's there for us. It's free. It's there for us to take when we need it. And I really hope people start to deprogram themselves. And I do feel like there's been a sort of a shift, a synchronicity in a sense of people are starting to deprogram themselves and to start looking at alternative, means and treatments, and it's really reassuring to see. Not enough people, I feel, are waking up, but it's an absolutely incredible journey. I'm extremely grateful to be on this journey, and I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to tell you this is the right way. All I am doing right now on this podcast is telling you my story. And I hope it will resonate with individuals, or even if it's just one person, that's enough.
Absolutely. And I so appreciate your honesty and, your willingness to share your experience, because it is so personal and it is so impactful. I want to share, I'm sure you know this, but I don't know if the listeners necessarily know, but there is research going on looking at the potential healing benefits of psilocybin and other psychedelics with military population, veteran populations specifically. A friend of mine who was on this podcast a few years ago, I don't know if you saw that episode, but Tony Bossis is a researcher, and he and his colleagues looked at psilocybin for use in people who had a very serious medical diagnosis and knew that they were kind of moving toward the end of life. And
Yep.
again, these were very controlled doses and settings with a lot of psychosocial support, like throughout the whole process, including the day somebody was there, the 8 hours or 10 hours they were there having the psilocybin and the experience. But people felt they lost their fear of dying. And these are people who, know that that is what is coming. Their mood improved. They felt more connected to other people in their lives. They felt greater self love and self forgiveness. So I think the more we learn about the potential plant medicines to be helpful and for whom and in what dose and what is the best way to try and ensure a positive outcome to the extent that that's possible, right? Not rather than just trying to because I think it's much harder if somebody's trying to just figure it out on their own. And that's kind of what you were talking about earlier in the episode.
Yeah, I mean, when I say to people, death is absolutely beautiful, they just look at me and go, "You've gone absolutely mad, Marty." And what I experienced, I have had a spiritual death about 2 or 3 times over the last 6 years.
And what do you mean by spiritual death? Just so everybody understands.
Spiritual death to me was where I just became so just separated from my body, and I was not necessarily given the choice, but I how would I explain this? I There was one occasion where I was reborn in a fire, so it was a big raging fire,
In
and
your mind.
in the
Sorry.
through the process, yeah.
Okay.
So in a sense, what that was about rebirth. So for me, my process is about death of the old self, rebirth of the new self, so the higher level, the taking that next step on the on the rung. So it's getting to our higher self. You've got to let go of the past. You've got to destroy the old self, the old ways of thinking, the old program ways of living a life, and so for me, it's visually, it was I was in a fire, a raging fire. I was the death of the old self, and I was reborn in this fire. Basically, it was extremely powerful, very beautiful, and it taught me death is absolutely beautiful. And this is why I believe that everybody on this earth should try should just try it. I'm not saying. I mean, I'm sure you'll come up with some sort of disclaimer next, but all I just, I mean, I've just lost a lot. I mean, collectively a lot of soldiers, a lot of good souls have moved on and decided to kill themselves, and it's heartbreaking. To attend these funerals, and don't get me wrong, the conventional therapy that I had earlier on in my journey was successful for me, but that was 6 months of therapy. I'm talking 6 hours of a psilocybin ceremony. Do
Big
it.
transformative.
Absolutely. And some people can't afford therapy. Some people can't afford the therapy sessions. And, you know, with the right sitter, with the right guide, with the right connection, with the right setting, with the right mushrooms, it will save lives. It will definitely change your perspective. I want to try and keep this chat, positive and uplifting. And again, this is just my journey, but really for me, it's again going back to the integration being the most important aspect of the plant medicine is it doesn't just stop at the ceremony. The person who is, people call them shamans or whatever. The aftercare is vital in plant medicine. If you think about someone who's just had an extremely spiritual awakening, and they've gone back into, people call it the matrix, and that's the integration is vital, and having the aftercare is vital, and having the right shaman, having the right leader, spiritual leader guiding you is vital. And unfortunately, like all aspects of life and all industries, there is corruption, and the wrong people do get involved in the plant medicines. And yeah, you just have to find the right spiritual leader on your journey, because you don't just do a ceremony and then go and head off the next day. There has to be an aftercare in place, because what you've just experienced is absolutely mind blowing and life changing. And
Yeah.
you need to be able to be given the skills and the tools to integrate back into this matrix, basically.
No, I mean, there's so much there. And Marty, I want to be mindful of your time. And I also just want to remind people again, you are an award-winning filmmaker. Your passion, one of your passions is, as you just said again, is to tell stories and to bring information into the larger consciousness. You are doing a documentary about plant medicine.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something more about that?
So the film was about the man who introduced me to all this, which is my friend's father, Tom. And we've
Wow.
become very, very close friends. And so it's been a beautiful journey, because it's been a 5-6 year process so far, and we haven't pressurized ourselves in a sense of getting it finished. We're just naturally going. We're on this journey as well, and it's a very emotional, spiritual journey of a man who was close to killing himself, and decided not to, by what he experienced through plant medicine.
Yeah, it's just really remarkable. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that we should have covered, or anything that you wanna make sure people are left with?
So I didn't really cover the ayahuasca experience. So
Oh, I'm
ayahuasca.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I'll quickly go through it, because it's getting dark. I should have put a light up, but never mind. As the filmmaker in me is like, should have put a light up. Um, so ayahuasca it showed me my ancestral chain. So the joy of ayahuasca is you all come to the ceremony and you're all strangers. I think my first ceremony, there's only 6 of us, which was great, which was a nice small group size. But I've done ceremonies where there's been 20 people there. But you come together as like a ragtag bunch of misfits. You're all from all walks of life, all different ages, genders, and you've come together because the medicine, you in a sense, the medicine has brought you all together, and that it's beautiful, because the first night you're all strangers, you're all a bit like, oh, nervous to meet each other, and by the third night, or whatever it is, by the end of the ceremony, because you've been, in a sense, been through war together, you become so close. And it's hard to explain, but you just you have this sense of that you've known this person for a lot longer than you've just done 3 days. It's a collective coming together of consciousness, and it's interesting, because all the people in that room triggered me totally different. This person reminded me of my mother. This person reminded me of my best friend. This person reminded me of an ex-partner. It was incredible, and we're all triggering each other. When we all take the medicine together in the ceremony, we're all triggering each other, and we're all going through our unique processes. The medicine, yeah, it showed me my ancestral chain of warriors, my grandfathers and my great grandfathers before them, and really it talked to me about behavior and events are going to continue to happen, a continuous cycle, a chain of events, ancestral chain, if you want to call it, until somebody says no, enough is enough. And then obviously through the medicine, I was taught a lot about the industrial military complex, about how wars are created to make money. It's hard to understand and to appreciate the fact that we've all been duped, especially the soldiers and the warriors. We've all been duped on both sides. That the same people in society are making a lot of money. And anyway, that's another podcast. So the medicines showed me my ancestral chain and showed me that you need to be the one in your family to stop this pattern of behavior. And thankfully, my son Killian, he expresses an interest in my past, and sees the photographs, and it lights something up inside him. But I've been very who am I to sort of sway his journey? But I've been very real when he asked me about war and killing people and death, and I'm very. He's only 7 years old. I'm very clear of how I use my language with that. I don't sensationalize it. I don't make it sound exciting. I really am, in my family, my ancestral chain, I am the last to ever go to a war zone, and I'll make sure that is that's the decision, and that's the break in the chain, the ancestral chain. I saw how the World War II devastated my own grandfather, and yeah, just there's been a lot of trauma in my family, a lot of wars fought, and for who for at the end of the day. And then I am grateful to have been wakened to the fact that enough is enough. I need to stop this, otherwise there's going to be hundreds more stalkers down the line to go to fighting a rich man's war again. So I'm very, very grateful, and this is why I don't preach. I don't tell people they should do it. All I do is talk. I make little movies, make documentaries. I'm actually making a feature film this year, hopefully this year, fall this year, on my experiences with ayahuasca. So I'm very respectful in what I'm approaching, and the subject matter that I want to cover. And with ayahuasca, I went into I think it was my sixth ceremony last year or a year and a half ago, and I went in with the intention of seeking permission to write a script, a fictional script based on my own experiences, and to make this film. And the interesting thing was, when I was doing my research, that there's been 200, 300 documentaries made about ayahuasca, but there's nothing ever been made fictional, scripted wise, about
Oh,
ayahuasca being a central theme. I'm talking about ayahuasca being a central theme in the story. And there's been a few TV shows about psilocybin. I think Beautiful Minds with Nicole Kidman was very good, but feature length film, no one's made a feature film about ayahuasca as a central theme. So I went into the ceremony, my last ceremony, seeking that guidance really, and that confirmation. And I came away from that ceremony again, just an incredible process. And I got the first draft of the script written in 3 weeks. So
wow.
boom, it was like I people call it having a download from a higher intelligence, but for me, I feel like it's already inside you. It just came out, and so happy with the script, and hopefully get it made towards the end of this year. So it's a powerful story about my journey with ayahuasca in particular, and I hope it resonates. And that's all I can do is just create my films, and let it sit there. And if people are drawn to it, or people are, if it sparks something inside them, then so be it. But I'm extremely grateful to be on this process, on this spiritual process, and also very grateful to do what I do, which is to tell stories.
That's really amazing. Marty, thank you so much for making time to do this. I mean, between the time difference and your
Yeah.
incredibly busy schedule, but I knew you had a compelling story to tell, and especially because it's about something that has been so personally transformative and healing for you. And again, this is not the first time that I've heard of people reporting. I mean, this is the first conversation I've really had with somebody telling me a journey like your journey.
Yeah.
But it's been really great connecting. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to all of your next films. I will put a link to your
Yeah.
website, and people can find out more about you, and I'll put your YouTube as well.
Great. Perfect.
But thank you again. So great to see you again.
Yeah. No problem. I'll tell you, I'll come back on the show on the Curious Minds when we've got the second film finished.
Oh, so fun. That would
Yeah,
be
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I'll keep you girls up to date with that progress. That's. I mean, any film made is a mini miracle. It's why
I can imagine.
when I watch films now, I'm like that. I automatically give it a 1 star before I even watch it, purely because my God, they got it made. It's a mini miracle in itself. So no, it's I'm just grateful to be given a platform to tell my story, and yeah, it's I hope maybe it resonates with your audience, and hopefully it does, and sparks some interest, and yeah, I'm happy to, you know, ask any questions that you've got, the audiences have got, 100% here to answer any fill any voids or any questions that I didn't answer in the podcast.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Marty. This has been another episode of Unpacking Possibility. Before I do my normal sign-off, I just wanted to say that if you are a veteran, an active duty service person, or a family member supporting someone who's struggling with mental health issues, please do consult the show notes. I'll have links to resources at the Veterans Administration and the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the episode and found it helpful. And until next time, as always, be well.